Welcome back. My name is Afonso Maiseco, and I'm here today with Pedro Neves, Diogo, Luís, and Pedro Dias, and we'll start the afternoon with a panel, The Importance of Sports Practice in the Success of Students Entering the Job Market. Thank you all for being here today again, and enjoy this afternoon in our company. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all of those who are with us, either here in the auditorium or back home watching us online. It is a great pleasure to be here today moderating this conversation between two top athletes who had not only wonderful careers, but who were also able to build a career after their careers as athletes. And we'll get to that in a second. Just before we start the conversation, just a brief introduction for those of you who might not know who our guests are and what their pathway was until today. I'm going to start, and I had trouble deciding which one to start from. I'm going to start with my own sport. Pedro Dias was a judo athlete, was an Olympic athlete in judo. He is currently the director of Sport Evolution Alliance, who is precisely concerned with many of the aspects we'll be discussing here today. After his career as an athlete, he decided to embark in sports management, right? So we can clearly see how your experience and your knowledge as an athlete has a transference to your career, which is a slightly different path, right, from Diogo Luís, who was also an athlete, not in judo, but in football, who played for several clubs, including Benfica, Beira-Mar, Estoril Praia, right, who had a long career and who then made the obvious decision of studying with us economics. So he's not only a top athlete, but he's actually an alumni of Nova SBE, which was probably a very easy thing to do, right? To be a top athlete while studying here in our school. You'll find him making comments in several programs and in several newspapers. So he's an active person still in the world of sports. And let me start with a very simple question. And because I introduced you first, I'm going to now go to the right, to Diogo. Was it easy to conciliate this dual career between being a top athlete and trying to be a top student?
First of all, good afternoon. Thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to return to Nova, not in this house, but in the other one. This is it's a fantastic space for the students to learn. It was not easy. I had a lot of discipline. I had to make my choices. For instance, when I was already professional, when I was playing in Aveiro, in Beira-Mar, I didn't have any vacations because, as you know, the exams are in June, and in June is the period that we have vacations in football. So I had to decide. I saw most of my colleagues to go to the beach, to go to outside of Portugal, and I couldn't do that. When I look now behind me, I think I take the right choice. I have to. It was also not easy for me because I have to learn all the things by myself. Most of them, I did most of the subjects by final exam. I couldn't connect with the teachers, with the colleagues, because my time was advancing and I didn't have any connections or most of connections in the university. So I had to learn by myself, reading the books, try to understand what I was learning. But at the same time, I had my training sessions, I had my life. I live with my teammates that has different lives from the one that I have, because they finished the train, they were going outside, take a walk, be with each other, and I couldn't do that. So it was not easy, but I think it compensates a lot, because we never know what happens in our life. I was playing football in the youngest, and I didn't know if I could stand up to the professional. Then I take that step. But when I was also in the professional, I didn't know if I had an injury or something like that. So I had always my plan B, and my plan B was the university. I didn't know where I could go with the graduation. It was difficult for me to understand that. But one of the things that I learned is that if I have the competencies, if I have the capacity, when the bus passes in my station, I can enter the bus and no problem for me. You know, I have the skills to go in front, and all the obstacles that I have in my life, in my professional life after football, I could have a positive answer because I was prepared for that. So the university was really, really good for me to train myself to think, to solve problems, and afterwards to adapt myself easily to the professional work.
No, that makes perfect sense. Pedro, was your experience similar?
Well, not that much, but it wasn't that easier for me. 20 years ago, I know I don't look so much old, but I am. And 20 years ago, nobody talked about dual career. Nobody cared, actually. Even today, it's difficult for you to find a club, a federation that cares about the full development of the athlete, not only about the sport results, but the development of the person. So I was 18 years old, I was going to university. My mom was always in my ear, oh, you have to study, you have to study. I said, yeah, I have a lot of time to study, but now I want to focus in my sport objective. So I was in university, but I was not so much connection because I had to practice 2 times a day. I was very tired. When I was in class, I believe most of the time sleeping. Like him, I didn't have so much connection with the teachers, with my colleagues. So it becomes a big gap between you and your commitment with the studies. So, and because I didn't have any kind of support from the clubs, from my coaches, also from the teachers from the university, this gap, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And at a certain point I said, well, now I will just focus in sports and then we'll see it later. And when you think like that, then we'll see it later, that's a big, big issue. When I finished my sport career, I was in a big hole because at the time I finished. So when you are an athlete and winning medals, everybody wants to be your friend, everybody wants to be next to you. You take pictures with the prime minister, with the president, and then you finish your career and nobody cares. Nobody cares where you live, if you have money or not, if you need help or not. So this was very difficult for me.
So how did you manage that transition? Because I imagine this is a challenge that all athletes face, you know, that, and I can relate, not relate, because I was not a top athlete as both of you. Although my parents made me practice sports my entire life. But this idea that, you know, in terms of sports, in one day, you're close to the top, right? And you almost feel like you're a godlike figure, and the next day, it was all taken away, and nobody, I don't know if cares is the right word, but at least that's how we feel. So how do you manage that transition? What gave you strength and energy and focus to kind of rebuild yourself from the ground up, which in reality, it's what athletes have to do when they stop being athletes, no?
It's exactly what you said. You have to, because athletes, they move towards their objectives. So when I was an athlete, I had one objective, was going to the Olympic Games and do as best as I can during that period. So I was 3rd place in the Europeans, I went to the Olympic Games, I was 9th place, so it was pretty good, I guess. But then when you finish your sport career, there's a big empty. So what's now? What's next? What is going to happen? So you kind of have to do a reset in your mindset and start all over again. So I said, okay, now I want to finish studies. What do I want to study? What do I feel comfortable? What gives me pleasure? What can I be good at? So I love sports management. So I said, okay, I will try to do sports management. So, but then it was like, okay, but now I also need the money. So I will try to work related with sports management, earning some kind of money. So studying, earning money, getting some experience for the future. And during the 3-year period, it was very hard. But and you have to be humble, you know. I remember one time I was working to a sport organization, and I was organizing a futsal tournament in Rio Maior. And I remember at the time in futsal, when you drop on the floor, it gets with body water on the floor, so somebody has to go and clean it. And I don't know what happened to the boy who was supposed to do that. He wasn't there.
Okay.
And somebody had to do it. So I just grab it and I just clean it. And a friend of mine was like, hey, look at you. Like 2 years ago, you were in the Olympic Games and everybody looking at you, and now you're cleaning the floor. Yeah, but what's the problem with that? I was not stealing. I was not doing anything wrong. So it was one of the lessons that I had to took to become a better sports management in the future. And that makes me where I am right now.
Did you have the same feeling that it required you to take 1 or 2 steps back in terms of, who you are, your identity, even the image you have of yourself, to take 2 steps back to then be able to jump forward again?
Yes, all of the athletes have to do that. I think we will never be prepared to the transition. From the most courses that we make, we will never make that transition pacifically. So Pedro talked about a lot of things that I agree. First of all, I didn't have the support inside the university of some teachers. Some gave me support to do the final exam, other ones didn't, and start laughing at my face. It was not easy for me that time, but as I could manage to the way in my graduation, because at that time we could choose the subjects that we wanted to do, I could finish at the same time. And I didn't have the support also of the coaches, because 20 years ago the football was a lot more close than it is now. Okay, the people didn't think to us as a person. They looked to us as a player. So it was not easy in that context. One player that was studying, but you want to study or want to play football, and I was never comfortable with that kind of situation. I made some final exams, but I came when I didn't have any training, because if I have the training, I could not miss the training, or I didn't play after. When we finish the career, I think it's a problematic situation. I think it's the period when most of the athletes make the biggest mistakes of their life, Because normally when you play sports, the money enters in your account every month. When you finish your career, that stops. And they try to find a way that the money can enter again in your account. So they go, some people that are present to them some kinds of business, etc., things that doesn't have any sense. But you don't see too well. You are in that kind of situation, okay, this is my salvation. And you make a lot of mistakes. I made some mistakes. I can recognize that. It's not a big problem. What I tried to do was to find a way. It was not easy because I had my graduation. So I can tell you also that I finished earlier my career. Because for my mistake, I lose the passion of football, or I let that other ones make me being disappointing with the football. Because when you are a kid, you have the passion, the dream to go and to achieve the first team. But then the football has different kinds of things that you don't control. And there are a lot of people that gravitate near or inside the football that gives you that you are inside of the clubs, of the football, takes you a different idea that the dream that you have. So for my mistake, I lose my passion. And when you lose your passion, you don't do the things the way you should have done, the way that your capacity do. So I finished and I thought, okay, if I finish now, from 10 years from now, I could have a career. But I didn't know what career I could have. So I make the second level of coach. I have the second level of coach. I can train in Portugal, in the championship of Portugal. I start to make some courses. I didn't know, but then one person that played with me, that now is in Benfica, Jorge Cordeiro, his wife was at a bank, I think so, and he told me, hey, send me your CV. I sent him my CV, and then I started to go to some interviews. And one thing that is really funny is that I started my professional career after football in Banco Big. I have 4 interviews with the same people, with the same person. At the 4th interview, I asked them, what do you want to know about myself? I already answered 4 times what you are asking me. But at that time, I understood that they had doubts about my capacity, what I could do or not, because you have the football players are not so well seen in our society.
There's a stigma there, right? There.
Not nowadays. I think the things are better because you have some cases of success. I think the players now are much smarter. They know how to communicate what we didn't know at that time. But 10 years from now, the people had really many doubts about our capacity and to give me the opportunity. They gave me the opportunity and the things went really well. And I think they appreciate my work at that bank. And then I start to grow up and to step by step to where I am now.
Did they ask you and I don't know, because you're an entrepreneur and you yourself, you kind of created your own business from scratch. So I don't know if you can relate to the question I wanted to ask to both of you, but it's this idea, were you able to, or were you asked if you ever went to a job interview about your sports career? Was it useful, like a topic of conversation to break the ice, or did it just work kind of against you? Well, if he chose to be a top athlete, that probably means, there's not much left. So I'm curious to understand if you were able to turn it in your favor, or if it was always kind of a handicap. Well, he was a football or a judo, athlete. Let's see if there's anything on top of that.
Well, actually, it's quite funny because it depends. If you're in Portugal, I never say I was an athlete. If I'm outside abroad, the first thing that I said, hello, my name is Pedro, I'm an Olympic athlete. And things change radically. In Portugal, well, I'm not from football, but we suffer the same stigma. People think, oh, you are an athlete, poor guy, dumb, right? They don't know how to do anything else beside the physical stuff. Yeah. So, people, in Portugal, they don't give value to if you did sports in your life or not. Outside, it's exactly the opposite. For example, last month, I applied for a job in Brussels. It was a very, very high position. Actually, I didn't believe I had any kind of chance, but I applied, who knows. And I know, I arrived to it was 300 people applying. I arrived to the final 3. And many of my colleagues were much, much better qualified than me, much more experienced. They were left behind, and I'm sure that one of the reasons that made me go further, it was because I was an Olympic athlete. Because when you're an athlete, you have a lot of soft skills that you don't learn anywhere else. Well, you can learn anywhere else, but not as good as in sports. And people outside, they value this. Sports, volunteering, and this is very important for your CVs. And for example, I'm doing some kind of work and research about volunteering. In Portugal, we are the worst country in Europe in volunteering for sports, because people see it like, oh, he just wants me to work for free. It's not about that. It's about knowing things, discovering, network. In my own companies, for example, when I lived in Brazil, my employees were all of them first volunteers. And they did a great job. So in the end, I said, okay, I don't want you as a volunteer anymore. Now you will start working for me. So it's about, again, the mindset in Portugal. We are not prepared. And you can see that even in sports. People who are the leaders, the managers of sport in Portugal did not do sports. And you go to I'm not going to say the name of organizations because I don't want to be impolite, but if you go to all of these organizations, you'll find the managers, the leaders, and they are related with politicians, and especially in sports, you stay with the last pieces of the politicians, so they are the worst politicians going to sports. And this is when you have a lot of good people with the sport capacity, with the sport knowledge, with the sport resources to do a great job. But no, you were an athlete, so you're not good enough.
What about your experience?
Can I just compliment what Pedro said?
Of course.
And most of all, when they pull the athletes to the organizations, they just want to use their image.
Yeah.
Okay? So they will try to find that one that is not going to create any problems, is not going to think. Okay? this is what happens in Portugal, unfortunately. So if you have an opinion, it's going to be hard for you to have success in the leadership of the sport organizations. Sorry, your question?
No. The question was about, you know, if you ever discussed or mentioned or were asked questions about your sports career, for example, in a job interview. You know, like, oh, I remember seeing you on TV, right? Or so how did it feel to play for? Something like this.
You know, I always felt that the person that was next to me, the right word is not excited. But I knew that everybody was a little bit different, a little bit, you know, they talked to each other. They didn't tell me directly. They didn't ask me anything about that, but it was a football player that was there. So it was a different kind of thing. I don't know if it's good or bad. I think it's bad for the kind of interview, but it was a different day for the bank or for the company that I went to. I never give too much effort to talk about my sports career because of the stigma. I also had that stigma because I knew that the person in front of me had that, so I had to control it. If you are talking to me right now, the way that I manage the interview is different. I talk a lot about sports if I have an interview because that creates sympathy. Okay, so I have to create empathy with the person that is next to me. But it's the kind of experience that I have because now I'm also, a lot of times communicating in the newspapers, etc. So I have that skills that I can take advantage of that. And for me, it's not already a problem because I already have a past. So I'm not just the old player. I already have another career. I have opinion. So I think that people respect me. But I can tell you that in my first years as a career as financial advisor, I never talk with my clients about football, you know, because I wanted them to look at me as a person that can be important for them in the financial markets, and not as a person that knows about football or talks about football. So I always try to put that aside, and I can tell you that most of my colleagues in the bank talk with his clients about football and everything, and I didn't talk a little bit about football. But that was the way that I wanted to happen, because I think the people must admire me or recognize me as a good professional, not as a former football player.
No, but this to me raises a really interesting question because, again, I was also an athlete, and Pedro doesn't. He remembers me. By the way, this is a disclaimer. Pedro remembers me as a referee, which is the best position to be in because obviously everybody loves referees in sports. So that's the best position for someone to have. But I've mentioned this many times. Well, in my career in academia, that I think, for example, one of the reasons that helped me, or one of the things I kept telling myself, to be able to deal with, for example, the first few times you have an auditorium full of executives waiting for you to say something meaningful. I kept repeating to myself, you know, once you've been through, and this is very particular in judo, once you've been through this whole process of spending an entire year, giving up on many things, to go, in my case, to go to the national championship and try to do as, you know, the best possible, and then you go, and in judo you have this one peculiar characteristic. Everything can end in 10 seconds, and there's no coming back. So you dedicated a year of your life, and it is over in 10 seconds. And you still have to stand up and greet the opponent, and greet the referee, and greet the mat before you leave. So it takes 3, 4, 5 minutes before you can get angry, you can, you know, and what I kept, you know, telling myself was, you know, the lessons were learned in judo. What I am today now, it's because of that experience. And I think it is a big loss in terms of learning that in both cases you kind of have to leave your careers out of the discussion, because I do believe that the success you have nowadays comes precisely from that career. So I guess the question I wanted to follow up with was, how can you change this mindset? How can we change this mentality and have universities look at top athletes not as, well, you know, here is another one that didn't study but was lucky in sports. And there's no being lucky when you're a top athlete. There's a lot of hard work behind it. How can you make universities cherish and value more this profile? And simultaneously, how can we work with coaches and clubs to try and signal that, in fact, if they take good care of the transition, they can actually reap the benefits, because not only were a top athlete, but now you can go work in the club and be a financial manager with the advantage of knowing a lot about the sector. And I don't know which one I asked first. The other one, I got lost in the middle. So what can we do? How can we change this mentality, this mindset?
I think you have to make a strategy. You have to start to show what are the skills of an athlete, you know. I'm going to tell you a story. When I started working as my normal life right now, I had to work from 9 till 6 o'clock. It was not normal for me. But as an athlete, I could adapt anything, you know. I have the ability to adapt anything that happens to me, because we are trained like that. If we are going to the pitch with water, we play in the water. If we are going to the pitch with the sun, we play with the sun. So we have that skills in ourselves. One thing that I look at as a funny thing was we started to work at 9 o'clock, 9:30, 10 o'clock, everybody went to take a coffee. And then they stay there 10:30 or 11 o'clock, 1 hour. And I say, well, we start working at 9 o'clock, but in the morning already 1 hour to take coffee. I will never go to take coffee because I was not prepared like that, you know. Because when we play football, we go to the dressing room 1 hour and 1 hour and a half before the training. We talk with each other, we make some stretch, and then when we go to the pitch is to work. And my mentality, my skills is you have to work when you are there. From 9 till 11, from 9 to 12, it's to work. So you have to be focused and concentrated. What I want to say to you is that this discipline, this focus, this concentration is something that a lot of the people doesn't have, who didn't play sports, don't have. So the sports have capacities and abilities that are really different. Other things is, when I was a football player, I have to take decisions under pressure. I have to take the best decision. In every context, in the training sessions, in the competition with 60,000 people in the stadium, and you have to take that decision. So you have ability to manage the pressure and to live with a mistake. And that's other thing that I look at as a different way. When you are in the sports, everything is too quick, you know. I make a mistake today, in the next minute I can fix that mistake, or in the next training session, or in the next game 7 days from now. In the normal life, I send an email, and I have persons that just respond to my email 1 week after. And they have the answer in the minute after. So I think the sports people can do great things for our economy, because we are really focused, disciplined, and we make the things really quick and with quality, you know. And that kind of skills you don't have in the normal world. You just have to show to the companies, to the universities, that this kind of people is really important for them to give the example and to brought the other ones with good examples. And I think in Portugal we don't have that mentality, but it's changing. I think it's changing, and it will continue to change. Other things, I think if you have a strategy and begin with the youngest people that are playing sports and give them some formation, because, you know, Pedro a few minutes ago talked about this. When you are a youngest, you don't know if you are going to be a professional or not. So the clubs, the federations must preoccupied also with the people that are in there. They are persons. So you must, first of all, you are not a player, you are a person. So when you go to 18, 19 years old, I have a lot of colleagues that thought that they were going to be Cristiano Ronaldos. When they achieved 20 years old, they didn't have nothing. And they have to start again to study. So for them, they lost 5, 6, 7 years of their life. And we can't let that happen. We have to give the right examples, and we have to show them the right way. And if you give that knowledge, that formation to them, I think the universities, the whole economy is going to evaluate more this kind of persons.
Pedro,
well,
because this is your business, right?
Yeah, well it's not business. The dual career issue is something that I got very involved with, because I suffer in my skin this problem. So what I want to do is that other young people, athletes, they don't have to pass for the same things that I did. So I try to learn as much as I can with this, and through the European projects, which my organization is much involved, we try to find solutions for this. I must say in Portugal we have maybe the best legislation for athletes in universities. The problem is this legislation is not adapted for the reality of the universities. But universities, they could look at the thing from a different perspective. Even if they don't like sports, they could look at it as a business also. Because imagine, if you have a top athlete here in Nova, and when he goes to the TV and he makes an interview with his medal on his neck, and he says, well, I want to thank Nova for giving me all the conditions to be able to do sports and to study at the same time. This is much more than Nova spends in publicity and other things, you know. So even if you don't like sports, this is about business. And it's good. It's good for the university inside the country, outside the country, to have a university with the best practices regarding dual career of athletes. And you don't need that much. You know, for example, you could think, and here you can look to best practices in other universities outside of Europe. For example, you are a teacher here, you are very committed with sports, you know sport reality. University could say, hey Pedro, we will take you some hours of lessons and you will be tutor of the high-level athletes here in the university, okay? But I
hope the dean is listening, by the way.
Yeah.
That's a wonderful idea.
Yeah, but for example, most of the universities, at least Nova, they don't even know which top athletes are in the university. Yeah. 10 years ago, I worked for Nova in the sport department, and my job was to discover where people were. Oh, do we have any tennis players in Nova? I had to discover. This is like, you have to know they are there. You know, you have to know they are there, a tutor go to them, okay, I'm here to help you, what you need to commit, we will also commit, but this is a common thing, and it will be good for both parts. Universidade do Minho has been doing a great job regarding this, and you see, now top-level athletes, they want to go to this university because they know they will have the good conditions there. And they go to a different level. They make protocols with professional teams, like the futsal team of university is mixed with the professional team of Braga, and so on and so on. So you have a lot of opportunities, and yeah, but you have to rethink everything that you're doing so far because it's not working. It's not working. You have to understand the value of the product. And to start doing something.
How is it, and you mentioned humility a second ago, how easy is it to remain humble after you had successful careers like yours? Is it easy? And I mean, I know we all assume humility is a wonderful quality, and I'm not discussing that quality, but like you were saying, once you find yourself in the top end, you're shaking hands with the president, with the prime minister, right, with all those people, you know, who are important. Is it easy to then, you know, remain humble when all that disappears? Or is it a tough lesson to learn?
I don't know. It depends from the persons. When I was younger, maybe I was not that much, but now I feel very comfortable with it. What I feel the most different part for me is because from my sport history, I'm very competitive. So everything that I do to be the best. And this is very hard for other people who are not in the same mentality to accept it. So when I was in university after my sport career, I was not there just to finish my degree. I was there to be the best student. When I'm at work, I'm there not just to do it. I'm there to be the best at my work. So that's very hard for people. It's a lot of pressure all the time. It's a lot of demanding all the time. To be good, it's not good enough for me. It has to be the best, you know? And see, this is another reason why I don't understand why people don't give value to, because this is not something about Pedro. This is about all the athletes. This is the mindset of all athletes. So what I feel it's my problem, mainly it's not with being humble or not, it's my mindset and to other people surrounding me to adapt to this mindset.
Diogo, so what do you do after you play for one of the big 3 clubs? And in football, we know there are 3 big clubs, now 4, and I'm very glad that it's opening up. And hopefully one day we will never know who is going to win the championship of the 18 or 20 teams in the championship. But I ask you the same question. Is it easy to remain humble after being a player for one of the main teams and being a face everybody recognizes?
Well, I think it depends of your structure, of your family, you know, of your values. If you have the right values, you will understand that this is a consequence of your work. So you are the same person. And if you talk with a lot of players, and you have some person here in the room that works in the Federation, Portuguese Federation Football, you can talk with most of the players of the national A team, and you will say that they are humble. But the image that they have to pass is different, okay? Because you know, you go to outside of Portugal, you must stay strong, and if you are too good, they are going to eat you. So you have to show a different kind of character when you talk. You have to show confidence, and most of the time we can confuse confidence with lack of humble. You know, so for me, I think humble. You must always have humble. If you don't have the humility, you are going to lose at some time. You are going to fall from a cliff. Some players that happens, some sportsmen that happens, but I think most of us know that life goes by, and we are going up, and then we are come down strongly or halfway, and we know that we must be humble. And one of the most important things that I learned in my life, and I didn't learn when I was in playing football, is that we live with relations. You know, the relations are the most important thing that I have now. Okay. And this is funny because when I played football, I didn't understand that, and I concentrated in myself. I didn't talk with the managers, I didn't talk with the presidents, I didn't talk with no one, because I didn't want to be seen as you say in Portugal, puxa-saco, you know. So I was okay. This is the way that I work. But right now, if I look behind, I would create a lot of relations with everybody. Because when you are a serious person, when the people recognize that in you, when you are a guy that was always professional, if you know the people can help you to open the doors. And the same in the other ways. I can help people to open doors, and without asking them for money or anything like that. Because in Portugal, a lot of organizations ask you money to open doors. We live in the global world, so we live with relations. And the people that are in sports have the capacity to create really good relations. Because, as Pedro said, Pedro was with the president, with the prime minister, with everybody that was there. So they recognize him. They recognize him talent, they recognize him professional, serious. So when he needs, they will hear. They will hear him. So it is important for all the people that are in sport right now, if they focus, if they have the right path, I think they have the skills and they have the relations. They just have to develop other things to become good leaders in the economy.
Because I want to make sure we have time to eventually answer 1 or 2 questions from the audience in case we have them. And as we prepare for that, so if you're watching online, if you have a question you'd like to pose, write it down and hopefully it will come to us. And I just wanted to leave this note. And while we're waiting for that, building on what you just said, then I have a simple question. So long story short, what advice would you give to current, dual career athletes? So if you're a top athlete right now and you're a student at Nova, what would you tell them? Run as fast as you can, or see.
I would say don't worry about the future. the bus will pass in your how you say, in your stop, and you just have to have the skills. You just have to learn as much as you can, because you will be prepared to the obstacles that you are going to have in the future. Because, you know, I'm a too stressed person. It doesn't look like, but I'm always thinking about the future. When I played football, I didn't enjoy that as much as I could, because I was also always thinking, okay, I have 1 year contract, what is going to happen next year? And after? And when I finish football, what's going to happen? So I was never enjoying the present. And I think that's one of the biggest problems of the football players. When they achieve 30, 31, 32, they start to thinking about the future. What I would say is enjoy it, make the best that you can, be the best possible, take the much competence that you have, the skills, talk with everybody, be humble, talk with the teacher, learn. We are always learning. You don't know everything, even when you are 80 years old. And don't worry, because you will have your opportunity, and when it comes, you will know. And then you will grab with your hands and you will be successful.
Perfect. Pedro?
Well, when you're an athlete, it doesn't matter if you're in an individual sport or in a team sport, you need a very big team surrounding you. So, for example, you have a doctor, you have a physiotherapist, you have a psychologist, and so on and so on. And all these kinds of persons, they are directly involved in your result in the end. And when you're an athlete, everybody is waiting for your result to be medals. But one person that is very important in this, it's in one project called Yoda project that I work in, is a new person in this project. It's called a mentor for a dual career. The problem is, like, clubs or federation are still not available to pay for this, because this mentor in dual career, he will not bring medals. He will help these people to be a complete person who is going to be good at sports and good at school. So I think this mentor in dual career, it's a job for the future. It's somebody with who has passed through this way and knows how the process works and knows he can help the athlete. So I think this is a new person in this group that could work with not only individual sports but team sports. But meanwhile, for example, when you give me a concrete a student from Nova at this moment, well, if I was a student now, I would go to the board, and I go there and say, hello, my name is Pedro, I do judo for a high-level competition, but I want to be also good students. So I'm here to have your support, to let me do both. So this gives to the university also the idea, okay, he's interested, you know, he's interested. We know already he exists. And then start working together. And it's not that much difficult if there's a will between both parts. And this will doesn't have to be depending on the laws, you know. You have to be flexible on both parts. Of course, it has to be a lot of sacrifice from the athlete. But if the university sees that the athlete is also doing this sacrifice, I'm sure that the teachers and all the staff will be involved in this too. Because when he wins the medal, like I said, it's not only he winning the medal, it's everybody winning the medal. And I think it would be very proud for Nova University to say, well, we have this and this athletes, they are great athletes, they are great students, we did a great job, and this will bring more people to the university and so on and so on.
Oh, that makes perfect sense to me. Before, and because I'm trying to manage time, questions, Bernardo, team. Did we receive one final question? Do you want to? There you go.
I have a question about the difference between the competencies that you win by playing an individual sport, as judo and tennis, for example, and a team sport as football, basketball, etc. And what are the main differences that you think that influence your interest in the job market? Thank you.
So for those of you who could not hear the question because you're following from home, the question was, are there differences, and do you gain or learn different skill sets depending on whether you're practicing an individual sport like judo or a collective sport like football? So I think it's Pedro's turn now. I get, these are two sides. It's very difficult to manage two sides. Imagine if there were three.
Well, judo is not the best individual sport to talk about because it's impossible for you to practice judo alone, you know? Like if you're a 100-meter runner, you can do it by yourself, but it's impossible to practice judo by yourself. So you always need another opponent for you to practice judo. Actually, judo has one particular thing, is that best athletes in the world, they practice together. So imagine what it be, Benfica, Sporting and Porto playing together 1 week before they go to an official game. This happens with judo. It's a different philosophy, but this happens with judo. But, well, it's a lonely sport because in football, for example, and I never played football, but I can imagine, if you are not at 100%, you have your team supporting you. So I'm at 80%, the other guy will have to run 120%. So we are the same level. In the individual sports, no, it's all by yourself. If you're not 100%, you will lose. You will lose. And when you lose, that's you who are losing, nobody else. You cannot say, hey, it was the goalkeeper or it's you losing. So, but I like this pressure. I like this, and I choose to do individual sport. And again, because of my backgrounds in sport, I have a lot of problems working in an organization as a team because I think very individually. I think, and I start doing. And people are, oh, why didn't you ask me? Why didn't you consult me? Because I always did like this in my sport. I'm learning, still learning. But I like the pressure. I like when people say, okay, you did good, you win, okay, good. I lose, it was me who lost, so I have to improve and go again to the fight. I like this kind of pressure. Other people don't like this kind of pressure, but like I told you, it's an individual sport, but we need everybody, a big team surrounding you, and your opponents who actually they are not your opponents. I like to think of them as some kind of friends because they have the same dream that I have, and we are both practicing together to achieve the same target. So I don't know the right word in English. Opponent wouldn't be the correct one because we are two people after the same dream.
Oh, this is interesting because in business, this is very similar to what we call co-opetition, which is when you have companies that are simultaneously partners, right? Because they share interests, they share markets, but at the same time, they're competitors. So you have to manage this relationship of being friends and opponents simultaneously. What about you, Diogo? Do you feel that by playing a collective sport, somehow the responsibility gets diluted in the team?
Well, I look to the dressing room as a company, you know, but it's a different kind of company. I learn a lot when I look behind. When I was at that time, I didn't knew that I had that knowledge, but when I look behind, I learn a lot with different kinds of leaderships and the difficulties that the coach task is. Because, you know, when you enter in the dressing room, you have 25 people. Everybody thinks it's better than the other one. Everybody wants to play. And you have to convince themselves that first of all is the team and then is the each one. And it's not easy. Then you have to adapt to different cultures. You know, you have African people, you have Asian people, and you have to know how you will speak with them and with the European one. For instance, I'm at the pitch, we are 11. I have next to me an African player. I cannot say the same thing to an African as I say to the European, because he can interpret myself wrongly, you know? So you have to adapt yourself to these kind of things and to take the benefit, to take the maximum of each one. And it's not easy. So adapt to different kind of cultures, a different kind of communication, leave yourself behind to put the team as in front of all the goals, and then fight each other for the position that we have to fight. It's not a competitor, it's our friend. Then you will always also learn about how to live, how to understand the kind of person that you have near to you. You know, when I go to a different kind of places, I think I have some skills that I can take a picture of the person that is next to me. I can say, okay, this is like this, like that, because in the football you have a lot of disappointments. And you start to learn about that things, about the communication things, the social...
So you learn to read other people?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. And you learn what the people that is next to you wants you to say. That's a good thing, you know? Yeah. Or you learn what you need to say to make the other person uncomfortable. That's also good when you are in TV, for example. You can create a good climate, you can create things that push up the audience. So I think it's really about to live under pressure, about to adapt ourselves to different culture, to different people, to communicate. Because, for instance, I can give you my example. My first press conference was a big mistake, you know. I went, I signed, I was going to play, and then they put me with a room full of journalists. And the idea that I had was the idea that they passed to me. The journalists are the really bad guys. They are going to kill you. They are going to pass the wrong message. So when I started to talk, yes, no, okay, yes, I didn't say anything. If I was in that kind of situation now, all would be different, because journalists can be my friends, journalists can project myself. So it's a different kind of view that you have to have. And I think in nowadays the people, the players have that kind of how do you say, abordagem, kind of approach, that kind of approach. They know they can take benefit from the journalists. They know the kind of impact they have in the sports, but also outside of the sports. So if you are in a company and you want a good asset, you can find a lot of them in the football. None of us are good people, good employers. You know, they have to have the skills. But I think with that soft skills that we learn in our sport life, for 10, 15 years, we are prepared to give a good and a right answer for our employer to give them success.
Oh, perfect. We're getting close to the end. So to wrap this up, I wanted to ask you, well, one final and very simple and direct question. If you had to sum up your experience as an athlete and a student, or as an athlete and having your own company, your entire experience, if you had to take away the one key learning or the one key characteristic you have now that you firmly believe came from that experience, what would that be? One or two words.
From the sports?
So now that you moved on, now that you're in your post-career or in your new career, if you had to sum up in one word, all the lessons in those 18 years, 20 years practicing high-level sports. Pedro already had time to think without the pressure of the camera.
Well, not one word, but leadership, commitment, and networking. For example, I can say in my European projects that I'm involved, I have to deal with many organizations from many different countries. And I remember last year I was in Bulgaria with the president of the Sport Institute from Turkey on my side, the president of the Confederation of Sports in Sweden the other side, a lot of important people in the room. I was really small there. And they were discussing, and it was a big mess. And at a certain point, I just said, okay, let's do this, and this, and you do that. And everybody was like, okay, you are the Olympic athlete. because they were like, no leadership, no, and I'm the person who connects, because I had to travel so much to talk with so many people, know so many cultures, like he said, understand how they work, how they talk different people. So I have this ability to do this. So I think, yeah, for me, it would be leadership, commitment, and networking.
Perfect.
I agree. Leadership. I think we must. The greatest lesson that I learned was sometimes in the wrong way, because I didn't believe in myself as I should believe. So believe in yourself, believe in your skills, believe what you do, and everything that you do must have an approach, must have an explanation. And I think I learned that from the sports, that what I was going to do, it will have an objective, you know. And in my normal life, I use that. You know, in financial markets, I have to explain all the things to my clients because that has to have a purpose in their portfolios. You know, so I think leadership is a really good thing when you are a owner, and you can evaluate the people that you have in your organization, good or bad, but you can evaluate. But I think also the other thing that I told you before, read the people. I think we develop that kind of structure to read the people that are next to you. And I think that is a really important thing in your normal life, in your professional life.
Perfect. Diogo, Luís, Pedro Dias, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for staying tuned. I hope this conversation sparkled, you know, reflections and a discussion back home. And we're looking forward to seeing you again in another conversation. Thank you both once again.